Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. I always say this to my favorite people, is we just got a lot better looking here. So, that would be bad for Brian. So Brian's left. He had to go to had to tend to an appointment at 2 o'clock. So we won't say that.
Brian's fine. Leave him alone.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to quit doing that. So I want to thank our sponsors. Many of these people, Coach D and Keady knows. John Basham, the good folks at Basham Rental. Triple X. You've probably eaten the Triple X a time or two. You might even get a sandwich named after you before long. If you did, what would that be?
I don't know. Whatever my wife tells me.
There you go. That's Carrie and Greg Ayersman. We thank them for their sponsorship. Hilton Garden Inn, when tomorrow's a big day. Stay at HDI tonight. And State Farm agent Trent Johnson at TrentIsMyAgent.com. Brian Newbert was talking about how Trent on his vacation was taking care of some of Brian's insurance needs. That's the kind of guy that Trent is around, not only as a Purdue fan, but also a supporter of our show. All right, Coach, you'll be getting on the bus at 2:30 and heading up to Evanston with this basketball team. Interesting year. I mean, it really has been been an interesting year in terms of exceeded expectations. You were around teams that did that for a living, and yet you go into that last game, and you had games too. Minnesota in '84. A couple games in 1995. What's that like? When people think you're going to win, but you still got to go out and do it. I mean, as a coach and as a team, what kind of mindset do you try to put them in? Do you think?
Well, positive. I think that the way we started, 6-5.
Yeah.
We thought that was a little shaky, but Matt Painter's always been a problem solver. As a player, he was. As my assistant coach, he was. So he knows how to figure out things. So he's got it rolling, and now we got to figure out how we can make some shots and make our free throws and get Williams to play better. Because I think when Williams doesn't play well, we don't win. So we got to get that number 50 to go better.
How do you and you had your Jill? You better scooch to your right because you're right in the camera. So there you go. There you go. Perfect. You're blocking the sun. No, in terms of Travion and getting young guys, and you've had some over the years where, whether there's freshmen, they're freshmen, and I don't know, they hit that wall, but they do certain things. You got to massage their way through that. How do you do that as a coach? You just in terms of what are the things that you try to get done? What do you think Matt is trying to get done to keep him confident?
Well, I've always tried to have 3 seniors and a couple of red shirts as our older guys, and that kind of worked. That's why we redshirted people, so we could have an older upper class situation, because they've been through all the wars, playing on the road, understand playing at Northwestern's hard, playing at Minnesota's hard,
no doubt.
And it's one of those things. But the older kids know that, so it's like we got to get the older guys to play at their best, but the young kids are starting to learn what it takes to win on the road. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, no doubt. And you have those games where on the road, I don't care where you're playing, whether it's the last place team in the league or not, it's tough in the Big Ten.
Oh, it is. Got great crowds that's playing against you. Foreign bed you're sleeping in, different food. So it's just different environment, but you just got to be ready and stay positive and keep feeding the positive bites into the player's mind. So it's one of those things where you hope that works.
I'm going to ask an impossible question here, but you can take it tongue-in-cheek here. Greg Eifert, Grady Eifert, who would you have rather coached? Now, Greg may be watching.
Yeah, better be careful.
No, we've had fun with Greg, but they both are different. They're different players, though.
Exactly.
Greg was a hustle guy, different type of, more of a left-handed, could shoot the ball, could rebound. But tell me what you see the differences and the similarities.
Well, Grady's father, Greg, was the best defensive player in the league for forwards. He could stop about any forward in the league, no matter if you're first team All Big Ten. He's a great defensive player. So I think that probably his son's a little more all-around player.
Yeah.
He can shoot threes. Of course, in those days, they didn't have threes. But both of them are great. I love the family.
Yeah, what a great story.
It's one of those things where we always pull for anybody that's named Eifert.
Yeah, an amazing thing, just to watch Grady have made some of those hustle plays, and as all your years in coaching, Grady's stat line could be zeros all the way across the board in terms of what the public sees on a stat line, and he can still have a great game. And there have been many guys like that. I mean, through your career, not just at Purdue, but guys that stick out in your memory of those kind of glue players. I mean,
Probably Todd Foster.
Todd Foster.
Right.
Herb Dove types, maybe, that don't have big stat lines but do good things.
Yep. Herb was a great defensive player. So
yeah, you had your share of them.
We've had a lot of good players.
Yeah.
We had 16 guys make first team All Big Ten. So in 25 years. So we had a couple good players.
You know, and have a guy that talk about, you know, when, you know, obviously you had Glenn Robinson and Carson Edwards have some similarities in terms of great offensive ability. Glenn did not have many big slumps, and to be honest, Carson hasn't had that many himself. But when you talk to a guy like that, or did you? Let's use Glenn. How much time when he had a game that he didn't shoot the ball well? Did you make a habit of pointing out what he did wrong? Did you forget it, and move on, know he's going to get better, or how did you deal with that?
I just made sure he was on the bus.
That's a good line.
Great shooter, great competitor.
Which Carson has that too. He's a great competitor.
Glenn, I got mad at in practice one day and told him I wish he'd go NBA this next week, and he got every rebound the rest of the practice. So
yeah.
He was never took anything personal. He just played hard when he had to. So, but we had a lot of players like that. Brian Cardinal, Brad Miller, a lot of people that were great players. Jimmy Oliver, on and on. And if I leave somebody out, I don't mean to.
No, I know that.
So we had a lot of great players here, a lot of great relationships, and I still talk to Troy Lewis. I still talk to Todd Mitchell. Everett Stevens don't talk too much, but I don't see him or communicate with him like I do Todd and Troy. But he was still one of my favorite players.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps asking me. I've been talking to some high schools around here in junior high for Todd Foster's children, and one of the questions they always asked me was, "Who's your favorite player?" I said, "I didn't have favorite players. I played the players that produced." So I think that's what most athletes' parents need to understand. That coaches play the people that produce, not because you like them or dislike them.
Yeah, and you always were good at that in terms of not. It's a game. It was if you were good enough to play, you got your chance, and played within the system. All right, one of some of my favorite stories, and I don't of going back and an Everett Stevens story still is his senior year, and I can remember a game that huge win at Michigan, and beating them on national TV, and that Everett asked the question about his mother being able to sing the national anthem. And my point about that is that kids aren't always as dialed in about every fact and figure of a basketball game as we tend to be. First, do you remember that story of Everett and the mother and Maddie singing the national anthem?
Yeah.
And that's really true. That the biggest game, you beat Michigan on national TV, huge win, and he's asking in the locker room about singing the national anthem. Really true.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And
here we won a huge game. We're moving on to the Big Ten. He wants to talk about his mother singing the Star Spangled Banner, which is precious because he's worried about his family.
Yeah.
I loved it.
But that is and again,
But you have to understand Everett Stevens. He was a different cat. And I loved coaching him because he was loosey-goosey and was fun to be around.
I think one of the ways you phrased him, and you may not even remember this, but you called him which I think actually works in its own way. You had some great. You could market a book of some of your great ways of describing him. But I remember you saying he was a happy-go-lucky dolphin. And I think that's true. I mean, dolphins are you always think in the water they're the opposite of sharks, and yet they're skilled and fast. And Everett Stevens was very much
Happy
that.
warrior.
Oh yeah, he was absolutely that. And you had some guys like that many guys throughout the course of your time at Purdue. All right, now tell us a little bit about you're up here. You're heading back to Myrtle Beach here soon, or are you going to stick around for the Big Ten tournament?
I'm going back to Myrtle Beach Sunday.
Okay.
And then I'll go to wherever they go in the first round.
And
not the Big Ten tournament.
Not the Big Ten tournament. How's your golf game?
It's okay. It's okay. I have fun. I have great golf.
Are you going to shoot your age someday? Have you
I already have.
You have shot your age?
Oh yeah.
That is an amazing accomplishment.
It was great. Yeah, the guy I
played
with said, if you make this next putt, coach, you shoot your age. So I didn't know that was going on, but it was fun.
It's amazing he got a 62. That you shot a 62. I know. You still have a fast swing. You still swing hard.
Oh yeah.
That's
swing hard. That's why you don't hit good shots if you swing too fast.
How many days a week are you playing in Myrtle Beach?
Depends on the weather. A couple times, 3 times. I'd like to play every day, but some of my guys don't want to do that. So I would play every day if I lived here.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Is that I know that you're always game for Purdue fans. If they're looking, he's always a willing fourth. Purdue's golf courses are pretty amazing.
They're unbelievable.
The Ackerman Allen. I've got to ask you this. The newest one they did. If you've had a chance to play that.
Oh yeah.
And what do you?
Yes.
I mean, what do you like about? I mean, I was always because my favorite course of the two was the South course or the Ackerman course, but what they did with that course is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I did. They put the watering system
Yeah.
in. It really helped the
Yeah.
grass, and things are a lot more landscaping, a lot better. So it's just amazing. And camping was a lot better. I remember when camping was like a goat patch. So
Oh, it was. It was.
everything is great now.
All right, so when you go up tomorrow and
But it wasn't called camping. It was called the North Course.
there was the North Course and the South Course. Were very inventive names. And then Mr. Campen and the Campen family gave some money to get that going in the late '90s, and Jim Ackerman, another great Purdue benefactor, stepped up big time to help the South Golf Course. And that has been, the rest is history, so to speak. So, all right, tomorrow, what do you expect to see from Purdue? I mean, the effort has always been there this year. It's been disappointing when you lose a game, but really, this has been an amazing season from every estimation, especially since December 15th.
Yeah, they're a fun bunch of guys to be around. No bad attitudes.
Yeah, and that's
And no, when you don't make your free throws, the other team gets twice as many free throws as you do. It's hard to win on the road. So we just got to quit fouling. That's what the referees would tell you. If we complain about it as a coach, they'd say, "Well, stop fouling."
Yeah. Now, you got a lot of airtime on because of where you sat. And a lot of times you do. I know you were sitting next to Jason Biedekofer, and there was one time when there was a foul called, and you kind of looked like what are they calling in that situation?
Well, the flagrant foul is what I was really questioning.
Yeah.
What'd they do?
Yeah. You mean the
If you ever played the game, you know you're going to swing your elbows.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they called the flagrant foul, but that's something that you don't understand. Just part of refereeing.
Is the game better, in your view, better officiated now than it was, or has officiating evolved in your view since your coaching days?
Oh, it's a hard game to work.
Yeah. Is it harder
Football's
because there's so many athletes, better athleticism in your
It's
view?
just so fast.
Yeah.
The game is so fast, so it's hard to react to what everybody thinks is a proper call, and they don't sometimes have the right angle in the call. So I've always told our players, and I think this fit the game of the night, if you play well, you take the referees out of the game.
Yeah.
And that's what I always try to tell, even though I raised Cain with the referees a lot, as you well know, and everybody knows that if watched me coach any, that. But I always told our players before the game started, if we play well, then the referees don't become a factor.
Yeah, and that's a true statement.
That's
But
what
can you
happened.
make 18 to 22-year-olds believe that all the time?
Well, they don't understand because
Yeah.
they're too young. It's like telling your own children.
Yeah.
They know more than you do. So it's like, wow. So it's one of those things. Basketball is a crazy game. I've always said basketball and golf and life are a lot alike because you never know what's coming next.
Looking back at your career and the chance to work, that unknown of working with 18 to 22-year-olds and to watch them get to improve as men in your situation, most satisfying thing about this is the fact that you watch even some guys that weren't household names as players became great people, partly because of their experience they had with you. How do you put that into words in terms of your experience, not just at Purdue, but your long coaching career?
Well, I'm just appreciative if they wanted to be a coach. After
Yeah.
being under me, it's hard to imagine why anybody would want to be a coach. But, Link Donner's a coach at Green Bay, and Conzo Martin at Missouri, and Austin Parkinson at Huey Pui in the women's program, and, Matt here, and Bruce Weber at K-State, that, I can go, Carson Cunningham out in San Antonio, so you can go on and on. So it's like, I watch them all, try to see them all play at some point.
Last question, Bruce Weber's having a pretty good year, too. I mean, have you been to see them play this year?
Not yet,
Okay.
but Kirk Clausen and I are going to go.
Oh,
and
good.
And my wife, Kathleen. So.
I'm really glad for Bruce that they've,
Yep.
he's really, they've established them after the great tournament run last year. They look like they might be in a position to do it again.
I think he's got most of his kids healthy, and it's looking good, but you never know.
You never know.
It's a crazy game.
And you never
That's
know.
why they play the games.
Never know on that tournament thing. It is, that's why it's so interesting, because it's, you win, it's the greatest thing in the world. You lose, and you go home. And that will be facing about 68 college basketball teams on the men's tournament side here in a couple of weeks. All right, well, we thank you so much, and Jill Spencer also for getting you over here. And it's always a treat to have you on the show. And I hope you bring them luck tomorrow. I think you're a good luck.
I have
charm.
nothing to do with that.
I know, that's good.
Just pull
That's
for
the thing to remember. Is you
I
don't
I
control.
don't tell Matt anything.
All right.
He doesn't ask me anything, and that's good. So
Yeah.
I just pull for him.
Yeah.
Brandon Brantley played for us, so I always pull for the the players and the coaches to do well. And I want them to get in the NCAA and do well there. That's the main thing.
Yeah, we're going to see that happen for certain, and
get their degrees.
Yeah, and get their degrees, and I think they're on most of these guys, if not all of them, are well on their way to that as well. All right, we're going to take a 2-minute break, and we're going to bring in Jerry Palm. He'll talk about bracketology and where he sees Purdue in the NCAA tournament. Purdue graduate as well, and a friend of the show. And then Tom Dienhart will join us for the last segment. We're on to our last segment, but it'll be the second part of our last segment as we finish up the March 8th version of Golden Black Live. Take a short break. We'll see you in a couple of minutes, and stay tuned.